Hello and welcome to my channel and welcome to another video. If you're new here, my name is Muzi Sibiya, also known as Wazibe on all social media platforms. Do subscribe, be a part of this family, and if you're returning Sabi, welcome back, darling. Now guys, we are back with another trial update in the Senzo Meyiwa trial, and as I left off last week, we basically closed off the week with the state ending their case or closing their case, and this week we were basically going to start with the defense case. So without wasting too much of your time, let us get into this video.
And I'm bad like the Barbie. I'm a doll, but I still wanna party. Being felt like I'm ready to bend. I'm a 10, so I pull in a 10. Like Debbie.
To be completely honest, I thought that we would have like an adjournment so that the defense can get their ish in order, but the defense was ready. The defense came on Monday, the 5th of February, and boom, accused number one, Sibiya, was on the stand, and he basically gave the events of what happened when he was arrested. Now, the interesting thing about this, or the thing that I did not know about, or something that I heard for the first time in court on Monday, is that it was not the first time that Sibiya had been arrested and questioned with regards to the Senzo Meyiwa trial, as we previously knew. According to Sibiya's evidence, he was arrested in 2019 for the first time and was questioned with regards to the Senzo Meyiwa case, and he says that the police officers that were involved in his arrest at that time were Baloyi and Mudau. There was apparently a person who said they know of his involvement in the case, and they were taken to this person, and the person that was allegedly there was Uzungu. Now, if you remember Zungu, he is one of the police officers that came to testify in this trial, that said that he basically saw all 5 accused on the night of Senzo Meyiwa's murder in Vosloorus at some hostel where there was music and lots of meat and. Now, according to Sibiya, there were officers that he was taken to, being Umakubo and Lishabane, and they basically questioned him about the Senzo Meyiwa trial, and after some assault and questioning, then Lishabane decided that they should let Sibiya go because he feels Uguti Sibiya had nothing to do with this case. And instead of letting Sibiya go, he was apparently taken to the police station by the other officers and later on released, only to be arrested a year later on a drug case. Now, this is very, very strange to me. How can you arrest a person and say you're arresting them on a drug case, let them go, before letting them go, question them on the Senzo Meyiwa trial, take them to the police station, they never attend court, and then let them go, only for you to get a J50 warrant of arrest a year later for the same drug case? Make it make sense. But basically that is what Sibiya said happened to him, and then obviously he takes us through how he was arrested. He basically says he was with 2 other friends. When police approached them, they were dragged on the floor, questioned, and then lifted by handcuffs, and all that evidence was given in on Monday. He basically goes through his evidence of how he was assaulted. He was taken to his place, and when they found no one there, they left. They took him to another place. He was assaulted some more, and he eventually wet his pants, which is so sad because it shows just the extent in which he was assaulted. And then he wet his pants. They took him back home. They then broke into his home and they allowed him to change his pants and his shoes, and he was arrested. So his version so far has remained consistent, and I love the fact that he is so calm in giving his evidence. His version has remained consistent from the time that Ngome Zulu was placing the little snippets of his version during cross-examination. Now everything is coming to light and it seems pretty much consistent. Now, with Sibiya's testimony, he maintains that when he was arrested, it wasn't just Ubtelezi and Mohola who were there. There were many other officers, and he includes the likes of all or Jonathan. He includes other police officers that have come to testify in this case that they were actually there when he was arrested, and this was all disputed by the other officers. He then leads us through to the evidence of when he did his confession, and he says none of his rights were read. So when Mngomezulu led the evidence with Sibiya, he basically was very quick. He got straight to the point. He told the story as was, and he completed his examination in chief. And then Mnisi then went into cross-examine. He asked several questions and he was done. After that, Mshololo went in with her questions, and after a few questions, she was done as well. And then because Baloyi is not present, he did let us know that he would be away for the whole week this week. Then he had his colleague Sibanda to cross-examine the witness. So Sibanda began his cross-examination, and basically his cross-examination was lukewarm, if you ask me honestly. He basically just pounded on the fact that every time a witness put their testimony, Sibiya did not object or did not put his version through. And Sibiya consistently said, when Mngomezulu was putting my version, I knew that if there are certain details that are left out from what Mngomezulu says, I will still be called to the stand to clarify certain issues. We went back and forth on Monday, basically with the cross-examination, and the questions were very lukewarm for me. So those were the proceedings on Monday. On Tuesday, the 6th of February, Sibanda continued with his cross-examination, and to be honest, I felt as if the questions were repetitive. If not repetitive, they were set in a way that would confuse the witness, because he would ask the same question but in a different way. But yet Sibiya was very consistent, and his answers were still very much consistent. You could tell that he understood what he was answering, although English is not like a language that he's good at or that he understands, but once the interpreter puts the questions to him, you could tell that he had a full understanding, and his version remained consistent throughout. On Tuesday, it was a back and forth of basically the same questions. I felt like I was sitting in the same proceedings that I was in on Monday when Sibanda actually started his cross-examinations, because the questions were pretty much the same. Sibiya continued to be cross-examined by Sibanda, and he then basically touched on the fact that when he did these confessions with Mboto, nothing was explained to him. Mboto just came there and he asked a few questions and he was done. The process didn't take more than 10 minutes. However, according to Mboto, the confession took about 2 hours. So he disputed all this. He remains very much confident in the fact that he did not spend more time than 10 minutes with Mboto, and no rights were read to him. And he even went as far as saying that he was injured in the process of him being arrested and everything. He reported all of this, and when he did report the assault, he remembers at the police station he reported it to someone, and that specific person, he doesn't remember the name, actually went into the OB books to try and figure out who had been assaulting him, and he or she then found out that the police that had assaulted Sibiya were way above her sort of ranking, and there was nothing that she or he could do about that. So it was very evident that Sibiya had reported on numerous occasions that he was being assaulted, and he even went as far as saying, you know, I was assaulted, and if all these people are saying they didn't assault me, then why do I still have marks on my wrists? And this is an issue that the judge didn't even bother to look at, which is a bit disturbing. But yeah, so he says he still has the marks. You can still see the marks that when they arrested him, they basically used to pull him by the handcuffs to try and get him to cooperate. And the version of him being choked not really choked, but smothered with a plastic bag over his face to try and get him to talk. That version remained consistent, and he said that he was kicked as well. And when questioned about the kicking, to say why is it that when you were kicked there were no marks, he says, well, certain people, although you're kicked and all that, you don't have bruises, but on the inside you can feel the pain. And because he is a dark person, sort of his complexion is dark, then you basically won't be able to really tell the bruises. On Wednesday, Sibanda continued with his cross-examination, and guys, in all honesty, there was nothing new with this cross-examination or his line of cross-examination. The questions were very repetitive as well, and he then touched into the issue of Sibiya saying that he was actually charged in July, not in October, that Kininda had testified about. And Sibiya is very, very confident in saying that he was charged in July. He remembers that he needed to go to a court appearance in Vosloorus. When after the court appearance, they then took him to the Vosloorus police station, and they even went as far as taking his fingerprints. Now, with this part of his evidence, he had messed up the dates a bit, because he had said he went to that Vosloorus court on the 26th of July. Later on, after seeing certain document, he had requested that they bring the document that he did his fingerprints on, but there was another one that came out in court, which was the interviewing document, so a paper that they fill out before an interview, and it does say he was at Vosloorus police station. However, the date was the 23rd. So my question is, how can Sibiya be so certain that they took his fingerprints on the 23rd, and there's proof that he was actually in Vosloorus on the 23rd, and they can't bring us those fingerprints? Chances are the guy is telling the truth, because not on any occasion did Kininda mention anything about Vosloorus case on the 23rd of July. So it's very surprising that his version, although they don't have the proof, the physical proof, something that the state has proves that on that particular day he did indeed go to Vosloorus police station, and there was an interview that was held with him. So he says on that date, that is the date that they charged him, and they took his fingerprints as well. There was a bit of drama in court as well, because our judge is very dramatic. Trust him to cause a scene. So whilst they were dealing with the issue of this document with the fingerprints, there was an objection by Mshololo, because Sibande then went on to take out a document which was issued to Sibiya on the 26th of October, which is what she says was the arresting statement that she completed. She says she arrested this certain accused at Modabi prison, and the stamp on this particular statement is from Benoni. So whilst they were busy dealing with that, Mshololo then objects to say, no, you can't be asking this witness about this form, because he says he has he isn't the person who deposed of the statement, so you can't be referring him to that particular statement. And the judge threw fits, because he then says Mshololo is accusing him of being a crook. Not once did Mshololo mention anything about being a crook. She just objected on the fairness of cross-examining a witness on a statement that they didn't depose. When did we get to crook? When? So basically, judge throws a fit. He says, I've been in this field for 50 years and I've never been accused of a crook, so you will not accuse me of being a crook. And I'm just like, eventually that dies down, and those were basically the proceedings. And Sibiya then completes his cross-examination, and he is done with his testimony, and we are told that we would have a witness the following day, which is Thursday, the 8th of February. We'd have another witness that will come through for Sibiya. But before then, Mgomezulu sort of says, you know, the witness that we were hoping was going to come is only available tomorrow, so I was thinking maybe we could start with Ntanzi. And the judge says, nope, we're not going to start with accused number 2 when we're not done dealing with the case of accused number 1. So we adjourned on Wednesday, basically to start the evidence of a new witness with regards to Sibiya's case. But before then, Sibanda then says, no, we don't know who the witness is going to be. And the judge says, you don't need to know. you don't need to know. So they then close off on Wednesday and we returned on Thursday. Okay, so on Thursday, I am not sure what was happening with the SABC, but basically about 10 minutes of the proceedings in the beginning were muted, so I could not hear what was happening. However, from what I gathered, Sibiya's witnesses were not going to come through, and they had closed basically the case when it came to Sibiya, and Ntanzi, accused number 2, was then called to the stand. He then basically gave his he then basically gave his testimony, and surprisingly, Mngomezulu was not the one leading him, yet it was Ramusipile, who is Mngomezulu's colleague. Basically, they're working together to represent the 2 accused. I really don't know what happened there. I don't know what the explanation was behind that, but Ramusipile started leading the evidence with Ntanzi. Basically, based on the versions, I can conclude and say that the versions that he gave, the snippets that Mngomezulu gave during the cross-examination of other witnesses, were spot on. We did get a bit of clarity here and there, and I was heartbroken when he gave his testimony because of the things that he says that he experienced. He remembers everything. He detailed how he was electrocuted, even though his understanding of what was going on was very limited. But when he explained everything that was done to him, my heart literally sank, because I don't get, if this was what happened with him, I don't get how another human being could do this to another human. He does give us details as to how he was beaten, who beat him up, how he was arrested, and how he was called by the wrong name when he was arrested. They apparently came and called him Usianda and then arrested him, not telling him why he was arrested. Then he was questioned about the Senzo Meyiwa murder, and he says, I don't know anything about this. He was taken to his workplace to confirm his employment. He was beaten up. He was handcuffed to the back for hours on end in a car. Oh, it really hurt hearing his version being spoken by himself. And from what I've gathered from both these accused is that they are so respectful. Sibiya was very calm. Ntanzi, on the other hand, is a tad bit emotional, but you could tell the pain in his voice, and also you can tell just how respectful he is when giving his evidence. Okay, so today is Friday the 9th of February, and we're continuing with the examination in chief of Ntanzi, where they're now going into details of the Mjiyako issue, how Mjiyako was actually appointed as his attorney. And Ntanzi basically says from the time that he was arrested right through to about the 13th of July, he had not had a phone call, he had not had a change in clothes. So he does not know how Mjiyako was contacted. He does not know how he became his lawyer. But he says that on the day that he went to Magistrate Cronier, Mjiyako just approached him and said, listen, I'm here to help you. And they then went into this room. Before they went into the room, Mjiyako basically said he was appointed by his sister. And when he tried to question who was the sister, show me the number, Mjiyako was unable to provide these details. This is just Ntanzi's evidence at the moment. We have not gotten into the cross-examination as yet. We are currently at our short adjournment. But also with Ntanzi, I realized the consistencies in his version. He then basically details what happened when he was taken to the dentist, and he says when he signed the form at the dentist, it was just to confirm that the gold tooth was checked. And we touched on the issue of his heart condition, which keeps popping up every time. It popped up with Magistrate Cronier, it popped up when Gininda gave his evidence. And Ntanzi says, I do medicals once in every 6 months at work, or I used to do medicals, and there's no way I could have a heart condition. I've never had a heart condition. It was the first time hearing of the heart condition when these people came to court. Gininda testified about it, Cronier testified about it, the dentist testified about it, and he says we can go back to my employers and ask for those files. I've never had an issue with my heart. If you work in the mines, you cannot have heart problems. You cannot have TB. You cannot have certain diseases. So there's no way I've had a heart problem. I've never had a mine collapse on me. I've never had any injuries at the mine. So I don't understand where this information is coming from. Another thing that was very interesting that he spoke about as well was with regards to the escort when he was taken to Rustenburg. He says Muhola and Kininda were escorting him and he was in the car with Mabena and Mohane, and this evidence was denied by all the other witnesses. But he says, listen, when we passed that toll gate written Bakwena, that car was there. If it means we need to get footage from that toll gate, then we need to do so, because that car was definitely there. And the confidence he has in his statements is crazy. It's either this guy is a pathological liar and he's really good at it, or this guy is telling the truth. That is just my opinion. Okay, Ntanzi continued to give his evidence today, and he is adamant that the first time he ever spoke to or met Mjiyako was on the 24th of June, when he basically went to Magistrate Cronje, then went on into the office, and he says that Cronje was basically speaking to him, but he never was asked any questions with regards to a legal representative, with regards to any assault or anything like that. And then after that, he says that Cronje said to him that this form that he was signing was basically for him to address the issues that he had, because he had said to Magistrate Cronje that he hadn't taken a bath and he hadn't called his family. So basically they convinced him to sign this form by saying that this is just the complaints that he's logged and he is agreeing to that. So that is how he signed the pro forma. However, he did not sign the statement. He said later on that day, Kininda basically met with him and Mohane and the likes of Abo Jonathan, and they then forced him to sign the confession, which was basically already written, and he had no idea what was on that confession. So he says if he had a confession that he needed to write, he would have written it in isiZulu himself, because he's able to write in isiZulu. But this confession that was brought to him was a confession that was already written, and he did not sign it with Magistrate Cronje. He signed it outside of her offices. So this is really, really interesting. He continued to lead his evidence. We spoke with regards to Mjiyako and his involvement, and basically Sibanda objected with this regard, because he says everything that Ntanzi is saying with regards to Mjiyako is hearsay evidence, and therefore Mjiyako would need to be brought before the court. And there was a bit of confusion with the defense as to whether they will bring Mjiyako to court to basically testify, and that is something that they are still discussing. But another interesting thing that Ntanzi brought to our attention is that when Mjiyako represented him, I think on the 27th of November, if I'm not mistaken, he says Mjiyako then came to him in the cells and said he needs to make a deal with the police. If he makes this deal, he'll get a certain amount of money. I think he said 3 million rand. So those are just some of the things that we have come to find out in court. And basically Ramusipile says that he is about done with his examination in chief, and whilst the debate with regards to Mjiyako was going on, the judge then just says, you know, this witness is probably tired, let us adjourn until Monday. So on Monday, we will then find out whether Mjiyako will be brought before the court to testify as a witness on Ntanzi's behalf or not, of which I doubt, because if Ntanzi is saying this person has been doing this, this and this, it will be another thing to bring Mjiyako in to agree with Ntanzi, because that will mean that Mjiyako will be in trouble. So it's something that's going to be really interesting to find out. But from what I take from today's proceedings, Ramusipili seems to have completed his examination in chief with Ntanzi, and on Monday I'm thinking we will proceed with the cross-examination. I hope you guys enjoyed this analysis. It was an interesting week in court, and we are making progress. And as I said, It's either these two guys, just from what I've gathered, this is just my personal opinion, and mind you, I'm not a legal expert, but it's either these two guys are really good liars, or they have been trained to perfection to answer questions in the way in which they are answering, or they are telling the truth. It's one of the three. And from where I'm standing, these guys are telling the truth. There's no way. But we'll wait for the cross-examination for Ntanzi and see how that goes. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will see you guys next week, Friday. Bye.